He wanted to name our daughter Isabella, after his dead ex-girlfriend. What he didn't know was that the baby wasn't even his. Alex and I were the couple everyone envied. We had the kind of love story that felt scripted for a cheesy rom-com. We met in a coffee shop, bumping into each other and spilling lattes all over his crisp white shirt. He didn't get mad, he just laughed, a deep, warm sound that made my stomach do a little flip. He was a successful architect. I was a graphic designer, and together we were building the perfect life. We bought a beautiful townhouse with a little garden out back, adopted a goofy golden retriever, and 6 months ago, after a picture-perfect proposal under the stars in Tuscany, we found out I was pregnant. Our perfect life was getting its perfect next chapter. The first 5 months of my pregnancy were a dream. Alex was incredible. He'd rub my aching feet after a long day, wake up at 3 a.m. to get me the pickles and ice cream I was craving, and talk to my growing belly every night, telling our daughter we knew she was a girl, all about the world he was going to show her. We spent our weekends painting the nursery, a soft sage green, and assembling a tiny white crib. It was during one of these blissful weekends, surrounded by paint fumes and unassembled baby furniture, that the first crack in our perfect facade appeared. "Have you thought any more about names, honey?" I asked, tracing the outline of a cartoon elephant on the wall. I had a whole list on my phone. Olivia, Sophia, Amelia, classic, beautiful names. Alex stopped fiddling with a drawer for the changing table and looked at me. His expression was serious, almost intense. "I have, actually. I've been thinking about it a lot. There's only one name I want." I smiled, intrigued. "Oh yeah? Lay it on me. Is it a family name?" He took a deep breath, the kind you take before you dive into cold water. "I want to name her Isabella." My smile froze. The paintbrush in my hand stilled. Isabella. Of all the names in the world, he had to pick that one. Isabella wasn't a family name. Isabella was the name of his ex-girlfriend. Not just any ex, but the one he dated for 5 years before me. The one whose pictures I'd accidentally found in an old shoebox when we first moved in together. The one his mother still occasionally brought up, sighing about what might have been. I forced a laugh, hoping it was some kind of twisted joke. "Isabella? Seriously, Alex? Like, you're Isabella? Very funny." He didn't laugh back. His jaw was set, his blue eyes fixed on me. "I'm not joking, Chloe. It's important to me." The air in the room suddenly felt thick and heavy. "Important to you? Alex, you can't be serious. You want to name our daughter, our child, after your ex-girlfriend? How could you even think that's okay?" "It's not like that," he said, his voice dropping, taking on that persuasive, reasonable tone he used when he was trying to win an argument. "It's a tribute. You know she passed away." Yes, I knew. She had died in a car accident a year before Alex and I met. It was tragic, horrible, and I had always been sensitive about it. But naming our baby after her? That wasn't a tribute. It was a shrine. It felt like I would be raising a ghost, a constant reminder of the woman he loved before me. "That's exactly why it's not okay," I said, my voice rising. "Our daughter deserves her own identity, not to be a living memorial to your lost love. Think about how that would make me feel, Alex. Every time I say her name, I'll be thinking of her." "You're being insecure," he snapped, and the mask of the perfect fiancé slipped. For a second, I saw someone else, someone colder, harder. "This has nothing to do with you. It's about honoring a promise I made. I told her that if I ever had a daughter, I'd name her Isabella. It's about keeping my word." "A promise?" He made a promise to his ex-girlfriend to name his future child after her? A child he presumably thought he would have with her? The sickness in my stomach intensified. We argued for hours. I cried. I pleaded. I listed 100 other beautiful names. He wouldn't budge. It was Isabella or it was nothing. The argument culminated in him punching the wall next to the nursery door, leaving a fist-sized hole in the fresh drywall. "This is not a negotiation, Chloe!" he roared, his face red. "This is what we are doing!" In that moment, looking at the man I loved, the man I was going to marry, I felt a profound and terrifying chill. This wasn't about a name. This was about control. This was about a part of his heart that would never, ever belong to me. And as I looked at his furious face, a quiet, cold resolution settled over me. Fighting him was useless. I had to think differently. I had to play the long game. I let out a shuddering breath and wiped the tears from my face. I looked at him, my expression softening into one of weary defeat. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, Alex, you're right. I'm sorry. I was being selfish. If it's that important to you, we'll name her Isabella." The relief that washed over his face was sickening. He pulled me into a hug, stroking my hair, telling me I was so understanding, that he knew I'd see it his way. He thought he had won. He had no idea what he had just started. 2 weeks later, I was sitting on the crinkly paper of an examination table at a clinic across town, one he didn't know about. A kind-faced genetic counselor was explaining the procedure to me. "So, you're here for the non-invasive prenatal paternity test. It's very simple, just a blood draw from you and a cheek swab from the potential father." I nodded, my heart pounding a steady, determined rhythm against my ribs. I clutched the paperwork in my hand. "Is the father here with you today to provide his sample?" she asked with a polite smile. I looked her directly in the eye, a strange sense of calm washing over me. "No," I said, my voice clear and even. "And that's exactly the problem." The counselor's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, but she recovered professionally. "I see. Well, the sample doesn't have to be collected here in the lab. We can provide you with a sterile collection kit. You just need to follow the instructions for the cheek swab and mail it back to us. We can also test against non-standard samples like a toothbrush or a used drinking glass, though a direct swab is always best for accuracy." I nodded, my mind already racing, formulating a plan. "A kit would be perfect, thank you." I paid in cash, using money I'd been secretly stashing away for months, ever since Alex's behavior started to show small but unsettling signs of possessiveness. He monitored our joint account like a hawk, but my freelance projects had their own income stream, my little secret. It turned out I had more than one. Walking out of the clinic and into the bright afternoon sun, I felt like a spy in my own life. I drove home on autopilot, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. The paternity test kit felt like a bomb in my handbag. When I walked through our front door, Alex was in the kitchen, humming as he unpacked groceries. He turned and gave me that dazzling smile, the one that used to make me melt. Now, it just looked like a mask. "Hey, beautiful. How was shopping with your mom?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me and pressing a kiss to my forehead before moving down to my belly. "And how's my little Isabella doing in there?" The name was a physical blow. I flinched, a tiny involuntary movement, but he didn't notice. He was too busy cooing at my stomach. "Your daddy cannot wait to meet you, sweet girl. We're going to have the best life together." My blood ran cold. His little Isabella. The way he said it, it was like I wasn't even part of the equation. That night, I lay awake long after his breathing had deepened into a steady rhythm beside me. My mind drifted back to a rainy night 7 months ago. It was the night of Alex's big promotion party. I'd found him in a corner of the bar, laughing with his colleagues, his arm slung casually around a female intern. When she leaned in and kissed him, a long, lingering kiss that was anything but innocent, he didn't pull away. He kissed her back. When I confronted him later, he told me I was hysterical, that I was imagining things, that my pregnancy hormones were making me crazy and jealous. He gaslighted me so thoroughly that I almost believed him. I ran out of our house in tears, driving aimlessly until I ended up at the one place I knew I'd find a friendly ear, his best friend Mark's apartment. Mark had always been the opposite of Alex. Quiet, steady, kind. He listened while I sobbed, made me tea, and told me I wasn't crazy. He told me I deserved better. In a moment of shared grief and desperate loneliness, we found comfort in each other. It was a terrible, beautiful mistake. The next morning, the shame and regret were overwhelming. We swore we would never speak of it again for everyone's sake. A week later, a guilt-ridden Alex came to me with a diamond ring, and I, desperate to believe our perfect life was still possible, said yes. 2 weeks after that, I found out I was pregnant. I had pushed the memory of that night with Mark into a deep, dark box and tried to forget. But Alex's obsession with naming our daughter Isabella had ripped that box wide open. Now, I had a plan. The annual pre-summer barbecue was next weekend, a tradition Alex insisted on. It was the perfect opportunity. The day of the party, our garden was filled with friends and the smell of grilled burgers. I played the role of the glowing, happy, expectant mother, laughing at jokes and accepting compliments on the nursery. Alex was in his element, holding court by the grill, a bottle of beer in his hand. My eyes, however, were on Mark. He looked miserable, avoiding my gaze, nursing a single bottle of water as he made small talk. My chance came when Alex sent him inside to grab more ketchup. I followed a few moments later, my heart hammering. I found him in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, his head in his hands. "Mark," I whispered. He jumped, his eyes wide with panic. "Chloe, we can't." "I know," I said quickly, keeping my voice low. "I'm not here for that. I need something from you. And you can't ask why. You just have to trust me." I looked pointedly at the half-empty water bottle on the counter beside him. His eyes followed my gaze, and a flicker of understanding and horror dawned on his face. He didn't say a word, just gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. He left the bottle on the counter when he walked out. As soon as he was gone, I snatched it, slipped it into a Ziploc bag in my apron pocket, and walked back out into the sunshine, my smile perfectly in place. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I packaged the bottle along with my own blood sample and sent it to the lab. Every day felt like an eternity. Alex, completely oblivious, was more domineering than ever. He booked a 4D ultrasound without consulting me, inviting his mother along. In the darkened room, as the image of our daughter's tiny face appeared on the screen, his mother clasped her hands together. "Oh, Alex," she breathed, her eyes tearing up. "She has your chin. She looks just like a little Isabella." Alex beamed, squeezing my hand, and in that moment, I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with morning sickness. He wasn't just naming her after his ex. He was projecting his ex onto her. Our daughter was becoming a replacement. This morning, it arrived, an email with the subject line, "Confidential, your prenatal DNA test results." I was home alone. The house was silent except for the frantic thumping of my own heart. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour, my hand shaking so badly I could barely control the mouse. This was it. This was the moment that would decide everything. The truth was just one click away. Taking a deep, ragged breath, I moved the cursor over the link and clicked. The PDF document started to load, a small blue circle spinning, spinning, spinning on the screen. Then it opened. The first line of text came into focus, and the air left my lungs in a single, silent gasp. Probability of paternity, 99.999%. The words seemed to float off the screen, shimmering in the light from the window. The name listed below that staggering percentage wasn't Alex. It was Mark. The breath I didn't know I was holding escaped me in a shaky sob that was equal parts terror and a strange, unholy relief. My baby, my little girl, was Mark's. The secret I had buried so deep it had almost felt like a dream was now a scientific fact, printed in stark black and white. For a moment, I just sat there, frozen. The world tilted on its axis. My perfect life with Alex was a lie. The baby I was carrying, the one he was so obsessed with shaping into a monument to his dead girlfriend, wasn't even his. The irony was so bitter, it tasted like acid in my mouth. He was trying to steal a child who was never his to begin with, to mold her into the image of another woman. The cold resolution I'd felt in the nursery months ago hardened into something sharper, something forged in steel. He didn't just want to control me, he wanted to erase me and replace me with a ghost. Well, two could play at that game. My plan, which had been a vague, desperate hope, now crystallized into a concrete strategy. It wasn't just about escaping him anymore, it was about exposing him. It was about making sure that every single person who had ever envied our perfect life saw him for the manipulative monster he really was. The baby shower was in 3 weeks. It was being hosted by his mother, of course, at a ridiculously opulent country club. Everyone would be there, his entire family, all our mutual friends, his important colleagues. It was the perfect stage. The next few weeks were a masterclass in deception. I was the model fiancé, the glowing mother-to-be. I gushed about the name Isabella, telling everyone what a beautiful, meaningful tribute it was. I let Alex rub my belly in public. I smiled sweetly when his mother patted my hand and told me I was finally starting to understand what's important. I let them believe I was completely under their spell. Inside, I was a whirlwind of activity. I forwarded the lab results to a private email account, then deleted the original. I printed 10 copies of the results and sealed them in pristine white envelopes. I contacted Mark, meeting him in a discreet park far from our neighborhood. When I told him, his face went pale. He sank onto the park bench, looking like he was going to be sick. "Oh God, Chloe, what are we going to do?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "We aren't going to do anything," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the chaos inside me. "I am going to handle this. All I need from you is your silence. Can you do that? Can you just stay quiet and let me do what I need to do?" He looked at me, at the hard set of my jaw and the fire in my eyes, and he nodded slowly. He knew better than to argue. The day of the baby shower was perfect. The sun was shining, the sky was a brilliant blue, and the country club was decked out in an obscene amount of pink and white. Balloons, ribbons, a 3-tiered cake with a tiny sugar baby on top. It was a picture of domestic bliss, a carefully curated lie. I wore a simple white dress that highlighted my bump, looking every bit the serene Madonna. Alex, dapper in a navy blazer, couldn't keep his hands off me, parading me around like a prize he had won. His mother, Eleanor, clinked a crystal glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. "If I could have a moment," she said, her voice dripping with practiced charm. "Alex and Chloe have some wonderful news they'd like to share about our new little granddaughter." She beamed at me, a proprietary smile on her face. This was my cue. Alex took my hand, his palms sweaty. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate with us," he began, his voice booming with pride. "Chloe and I are so excited to meet our little girl, and we've finally settled on the perfect name for her, a name that means a great deal to our family." He looked at me expectantly. I took a deep breath. Showtime. I plastered a radiant smile on my face and looked out at the sea of expectant faces. "Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Eleanor, for this beautiful party. Alex is right. We have chosen a name that is incredibly special. We're going to name her Isabella." A collective sigh of approval went through the room. Eleanor dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Alex squeezed my hand, whispering, "I knew you'd do the right thing." "But," I continued, my voice ringing out clearly, cutting through the murmurs of approval. The room went quiet. I let the smile drop from my face. "Before we toast to little Isabella, there's one other person I'd like to honor today. Someone whose memory Alex seems determined to keep alive no matter the cost to those of us who are still living." Alex's smile faltered. His grip on my hand tightened painfully. "Chloe, what are you doing?" he hissed. I ignored him, pulling my hand from his grasp. I picked up the small, beautifully wrapped gift box from the table in front of me. It wasn't a baby gift. It was for Alex. "In fact," I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. "I have a little gift, a sort of pre-push present, you could say, to commemorate this very special occasion and the very special woman we're naming our daughter after." I held the box out to him. His face was a mask of confusion and growing anger. Every eye in the room was on us. He snatched the box from my hand, his movements jerky. He ripped off the ribbon and tore open the paper. Inside, nestled on a bed of tissue paper, was a single white envelope. He pulled it out, his brows furrowed. He opened the flap and slid out the single piece of paper inside. His eyes scanned the first line, and then the second. The color drained from his face, leaving behind a sick, chalky white. His jaw went slack, and the paper fluttered from his suddenly nerveless fingers, landing face up on the pristine white tablecloth for everyone to see. The silence in the room was absolute, a thick, suffocating blanket. The only sound was the soft rustle of the single sheet of paper as a breeze from the open patio door danced across the table. Alex stared at it as if it were a venomous snake, his face a grotesque canvas of shock, disbelief, and dawning fury. His mother, Eleanor, sensing the dramatic shift in atmosphere, moved forward. "Alex, darling, what is it? What's wrong?" She reached the table and her eyes fell upon the heading of the document. "Prenatal paternity test results," she read aloud, her voice a confused whisper. Then her gaze dropped to the damning percentage and the name printed below it. Mark. Her perfectly coiffed head snapped up, her eyes wide, darting from the paper to me, then to a pale frozen Mark standing near the back of the room, and finally landing on her son. That's when the dam broke. You cheated on me?" Alex's voice was a low, dangerous growl. He took a step toward me, his hands clenching into fists. "You lion!" "Don't," I said, my voice as cold and sharp as ice. I didn't back away. I stood my ground, my hand resting protectively on my belly. "Don't you dare try to make this my fault. Don't you dare stand there and act like the victim." I turned to the stunned crowd, my voice rising, filled with a righteous anger I had suppressed for months. This man, this perfect fiancé, demanded he didn't ask. He demanded that I name my daughter after his dead ex-girlfriend. He punched a hole in our wall when I disagreed. He told me my feelings didn't matter, that it was about a promise he made to her. Gasps rippled through the room. People who had been smiling moments before were now staring at Alex with expressions of confusion and disgust. "He wanted to turn our child into a living shrine to a ghost," I continued, my voice trembling with emotion but unwavering in its purpose. "He wanted to erase her identity before she was even born. He wanted to look at our daughter and see someone else, and he gaslighted me, bullied me, and manipulated me until I agreed. He thought he had won. He thought he had broken me." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. I looked directly at Alex, whose face was now a mottled red. So I decided to find out if this baby he was so determined to claim and rename was even his. And it turns out she's not. It seems fate has a funny way of protecting the innocent. Eleanor finally found her voice. "This is a disgrace," she shrieked, pointing a trembling, diamond-clad finger at me. "You come into my son's life, you trap him with another man's child, and you try to ruin his reputation. You are a conniving, gold-digging—" "Enough, Eleanor," I cut her off, my patience gone. I reached into the large gift bag by my chair, the one everyone assumed was full of baby clothes, and pulled out the stack of white envelopes. "You think I'm the one who's conniving? Your son is a bully and a cheat." I started walking around the room, placing an envelope on each table. "He was kissing an intern at his promotion party. I have photos. He controls every cent in our joint account. I have statements. He emotionally abused me for months, and I have text messages to prove it. But please, go ahead and open these. This is the truth about your perfect son." A frantic shuffling of paper filled the room as guests tore open the envelopes, their eyes scanning the DNA results. The murmurs grew into a roar of shock and outrage. Friends who had clapped Alex on the back an hour ago now looked at him like he was something they'd found on the bottom of their shoe. Alex stood there, utterly exposed, the swagger and confidence stripped away, leaving behind a small, pathetic man drowning in the consequences of his own actions. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a venomous hatred. "I will destroy you for this," he seethed. "No, you won't," I said, my voice calm. "You have nothing left. Your reputation is ruined. Your friends and family now see you for who you are. And your precious Isabella, well, she was never yours to begin with." I turned my back on him and walked toward Mark, who was still standing, white as a sheet, by the door. I took his hand. "We're leaving." We walked out of that country club, leaving behind the wreckage of Alex's life. The aftermath was swift. Alex's company, embarrassed by the scandal, quietly moved him to a different department with no public-facing role. Most of his friends, disgusted by his behavior, cut ties. Eleanor tried a smear campaign, but with the evidence I distributed, no one believed her. Mark was terrified at first, but he stepped up. He was there for every doctor's appointment. He helped me move into a new apartment, a bright, sunny place that was all mine. We talked for hours, sorting through the mess and the guilt. There was no magical romance, no fairy tale ending. It was awkward and complicated, but it was real. We were two people bound by a mistake that had turned into a miracle. 3 months later, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl. She had Mark's kind eyes and a tuft of my dark hair. Holding her in my arms, I knew I had made the right choice. She was perfect. She was her own person. As Mark and I stood by the hospital window looking down at our daughter sleeping in the bassinet, he finally asked the question that had been hanging between us. Have you thought of a name?" he asked softly. I smiled, a real, genuine smile, the first one that had reached my eyes in a long time. I looked at my daughter, my brave, beautiful girl who deserved a name that was all her own, a name free from ghosts and expectations, a name that meant hope. "Yes," I said, my voice filled with love and certainty. "Her name is Chloe, but we'll call her Coco for short."